What did you say?
How's my hair?
Did you? Oh, they love your hair, Jake.
Be great. I can't zoom in. I've got no idea what's going on up there.
Your hair and your microphone are the two big talking points of the podcast, not the things we talk about.
No.
Just how nice you look. Okay.
Gosh.
Hello and welcome to The Pouch, the Up Cricket. The Up Cricket. I might fix it.
The Up Cricket?
This is what it was meant to say.
Oh, cracked up. I'll take out up.
Okay, the Up Cricket. Hello and welcome to the
style of cricket. Gonna play up cricket.
You'll play it on a roof.
And nobody likes it either. That's what. Anyway.
Hello and welcome to The Pouch, the cracked up cricket pitch of podcast that aims to take a not so serious look at the week in Australian news and politics. I'm Greg. Oh no, where will I get my news from now, Savage?
And I'm Jake. Is that a recession you're concealing, or is it just two straight quarters of negative economic growth? Farr-wharton. On today's episode, we talk borders, superannuation, Facebook, and much, much more.
And Jake, while we're as snug as a bug in this proverbial rug, I want to know, what job would you give Tony Abbott to do that he is also extremely unqualified for?
Well, I was going to say carpet salesperson. I reckon he'd just do great with that.
Yeah.
But now I'm reckoning he's going to be a famous up cricketer.
Okay. Jake, we didn't really give too much credence last week to a couple of stories that I just wanted to touch on. We kind of did, but they didn't make it into the official version of the show. The very first one, I just wanted to touch on about the tragedy of the Northern Territory bushfires. So I just wanted to touch on that one for a couple of seconds if we can. Are you ready to sort of delve into that one?
Yeah, I mean, I know very little about it, but yes.
Yeah. Okay, well, I suppose I wanted to just acknowledge the fact that so over the last 7 days they attended to 25 different bushfires, and one of those particular days was catastrophic.
Wow.
A catastrophic day. So the fact that, I know that they don't really have seasons up the top there. They've got like dry and not dry.
Yep.
And then, but, the fact that we're kind of, the rest of the world is kind of in winter, and we've got these catastrophic bushfires happening. That was pretty full on. So I just wanted to acknowledge that and acknowledge the hard work that's happening up there, and hope that the new Gunner government, that the renewed, the refreshed,
to the previous Gunner government, but yes,
that they do a wonderful job of supporting everyone up there. All right. Now, Jake, a little bit of a warm-up. We have to dip our toes into the pouch first. We can't just dive into the pouch. The kangaroo doesn't like that.
No. To ease yourself in?
Yeah. So we're going to ease ourselves into it. A meteor crater was discovered that could be 5 times bigger than the Wolf Creek crater, ABC News has pointed out.
And the Wolf Creek crater is known as one of the largest in the world.
Is it? I didn't know that. I was wondering why they were comparing it to the Wolf Creek crater.
Instead of just, it's as big as 6,000 buses, or it's as big as 24 Sydney harbours.
1 million ants.
Swimming pools.
6.
It's 1.5 Wolf Creeks.
I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to delete that first bit of the show. Okay, so a team of geologists led by geological consultant Dr. Jason Myers is behind the discovery in Western Australians goldfields. Clive Palmer has already claimed it. Initial estimates suggest the asteroid that created the crater collided with Earth 100 million years ago.
Which was absolutely the time for it.
It was such a great time, wasn't it? I think Friends was up to season 3.
Yep.
And, meteors were just going all over the place. We didn't worry about bushfires back then.
No, because meteors were just constantly impacting.
They were. The Ora Banda crater is believed to be 5 times bigger than the 880-meter wide Wolf Creek crater. There you go, Jake. 5 times bigger.
Yeah, wow.
How did they discover this? Like, wouldn't a plane have gone, hang on, that's really enormous?
Yeah, it's
how
really
do they not
spherical shape? Because, you got to make these, you got to have these questions. Well, firstly,
I do have these questions, Jake. They're yearning. The questions are yearning.
Yearning and burning. and pumping in time. No, so it's one of those things that if a plane does, like, that might not be the normal trajectory for plane flights, and as a consequence, not, it could be that not too many people have flown over the top of it in order to see the conical shape of a typical meteorite or asteroid.
But you're looking at a 4.5 kilometer wide crater.
Yes. Yeah.
That's just in the middle of Australia, and no one's seen it.
Might just be like a really slight gradient, because it doesn't. They're not always.
I don't know, Jake.
They're not
I've
always
seen the photo.
Massive things of rock and metal that hit the Earth. They're quite often, a little bit of rock and metal encased in ice, and when that ice hits the atmosphere and superheats, it can explode. So that it might just be that explosion. If you look up to what is it called, the Chernobylsk, that were Chernobylsk or Tunguska.
Oh yeah.
There's recordings of meteorites that have not necessarily struck the Earth, but they're vapor. The things have vaporized, causing a massive explosion, but not necessarily touching the ground. So this one may have touched the ground a little bit, enough to disturb the Earth, but not necessarily in such a way that would be something that you'd point out as a typical meteorite strike.
So the vision that I have of this enormously deep bowl or something like that, it might just be more of a flat, like sort of a flat plane with a little lip or something.
Yeah, or something like that, or it might be a slight gradient in for a significant period of time. Because if you're talking about 880 meters,
that's for the wolf. Yeah.
So it's what, around a 4 meter 4 kilometer stretch. So it might be a slight gradient.
Okay, all right. That's interesting. Very interesting. Thanks, Dr. Carl.
It's my pleasure. I'm wearing the right shirt for being a Dr. Carl Talk a lot.
You're not only wearing the right shirt, you're also saying the right things. Okay. So, Jake, for Christmas,
yes,
we're going to get some open borders.
I've got another.
Sorry, you got a warm up.
I got another warm up.
All right, okay, go.
It's actually not a good warm up. I mean,
it's not on here, Jake. Good. I'm freaking out. I don't do improv.
Schoolies week in Queensland,
of course,
has been cancelled, unfortunately, because of the pandemic.
Right.
But we have some good news. We have a silver lining in every cloud, as they say, Greg.
Yes. Every cloud?
Yes. In every cloud, there's Tony Abbott. He's sitting up there trying to get a job as a trade envoy, but there's also a silver lining.
Okay.
In
You're hosting Schoolies. That's the silver lining. Jake's house. Put the address at the bottom of the screen.
Don't come to my house, please. I have enough teenagers. New South Wales is going to be allowing for schoolies to occur. However, every young person finishing school that wants to attend schoolies must maintain social distancing.
Yes.
Which means they're going to be grinding on each other from across the room.
Yeah.
Which isn't really grinding.
Well,
one might say
it's just a pandemic grinding, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Look, it was scheduled to start on November 21st. The Queensland government has cancelled all official Schoolies Week 2020 activities, and accommodation providers will still be able to offer rooms during the Schoolies period.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're going to offer rooms. Right, so this is not looking good. So they're just not having the outdoor activities.
That's right, and that is the massive part about schoolies. Essentially, from dusk till dawn and beyond, they have activities on the beach. They have, it is the area of Surfers Paradise and several other beach areas. They are just absolutely chock-a-block, you might say, with school leavers.
Yeah, and Jake, it's such a shame because you and I were scheduled to be there hosting the Poucher podcast live from Schoolies. Yeah, we were the official podcast of Schoolies. So I'm sorry to everyone who was all of those teenagers and things who were looking forward to listening to two, one white man and one, what are you? Tanned?
Italian.
One extremely tanned man and one significantly less tanned man talk about Australian news.
Yeah, and politics, but not so seriously.
Well, yeah, that was the kicker, right? It was going to be not so serious. Anyway, so sorry to all those Schoolies people. We were going to be the official podcast of Schoolies, but now, of course,
guys.
That's right. Now in Tasmania, though, on a side note, in Tasmania, you can dance.
Yep.
You
It's all they do.
you can basically have a prom.
In the end, you couldn't stop them from doing it.
No. They were out of control. They're out of control, those Tassies. They
Those
just love their
Tassies.
dancing. But you can dance down there. I think I read a quote somewhere. It said, as recognition that because at school they're not social distancing anyway, and that they're allowed to mingle within their particular cohort anyway. So there's no difference between that and the prom. I don't think parents are allowed in, though, which also makes sense.
It
All
does
right.
make sense, a certain amount of sense.
Yes, it does make sense. Just no dollars, to quote Kanye West. Now, we've
He's
got
a sage, a poet of our times, really.
he was for a second there.
Yeah. So glad he's running for president.
All right, we've got some mixed feelings now, Jake, about the National Cabinet. We were all on board with the National Cabinet. We absolutely loved it. We thought this is the bee's knees. This is the bomb. This is going to solve all of our problems. Let's ditch COAG. COAG is in the bin. In the wheelie bin. We shut the wheelie bin lid. We covered it in flies. It was gone. Forgotten about. And now all of a sudden we have the National Cabinet. Absolutely fantastic. Going to solve all our problems, except it's not.
Well, it solved all but one problem.
Yes. The bus. This is the bus. Can we talk about the bus? Do you know about the bus?
I don't know about the bus.
Okay.
This is tell me about the bus.
Okay, so Scott Morrison, in his press conference yesterday, was talking about the fact that the National Cabinet got together and they couldn't come to an agreement about what constitutes, quantifiable numbers for opening up an economy, closing down an economy, hotspots, all that sort of stuff. What are the actual numbers that constitute these things? Anyway, they couldn't come to an agreement. So he said, the bus. Not all the passengers have to get on the bus for the bus to leave the station. But we all have to agree that the bus will leave the station. So the bus has to leave, but not everyone has to be on the bus. And so continuing on that metaphor, obviously Western Australia, not on the bus. But the bus has to leave. So they have to come to some sort of agreement. This is the bus.
What I'd really like is one of those romantic comedy movies where somebody sprints. It's like the airport scene where the person's running for their, for their love that they have just admitted that they actually love them. They're sprinting towards the bus. They're sprinting and sprinting and sprinting and no, don't leave us behind.
I think that's what's going to happen. Well, because they are going to get left behind.
Exactly. WA have essentially said. Guys, we're fine.
WA don't care about the bus. WA have a limousine.
Well, WA have said, look, we're gonna make our own bus, guys, and we're not going to invite you. Okay, so yes, the Prime Minister has confirmed that 7 of 8 states and territories are working to have their borders open by Christmas. Following this week's National Cabinet, Scott Morrison today emphasised the need for Australia's state governments to work together to deal with the ongoing economic damage of COVID-19. Morrison implored the spirit of Australia's federation almost 120 years ago. He said, quote, "It is also the job of all of those who come together in our state parliaments, those who form governments and seek to work together in the ways that our federation intended." Quote, "This year, the year of the COVID pandemic and the COVID recession has tested us like we haven't been tested in many generations," which is true. Many of us have been tested twice. Some people have been tested 3 times. It's not
Very
pleasant.
Funny.
Yeah.
I haven't had a test yet. I haven't had to get a test. I haven't gotten sick.
It's not enjoyable.
No.
My daughter, I volunteered to go first, and at the same time, my daughter was getting tested. And when she saw me do it, she said, "Wow, I wish I'd gone first." That didn't look pleasant. But then, of course, she got through it a lot easier than I did. But yes, as you hinted, Western Australia is the one holdout.
Yes.
Mark McGowan, the Premier of Western Australia, said. Prime Minister Scott Morrison and other states and territories understood the decision, given WA's, quote, unique factors and the, quote, very positive direction our economy is heading.
That's right.
McGowan said, quote, "Unlike the rest of the country, WA is not currently in a recession, so we won't be prematurely opening our borders," which is hilarious, of course, because Australia is in a recession. states themselves might have a budget surplus, but the economy is based around Australia. The Australian GDP is in negative territory, and as a consequence, Australia is in a recession.
Well, I heard
might be going okay, but yes.
I heard a comment that said that he was sort of being a bit tricky with his words there because apparently they just haven't had the 2 consecutive negative growth quarters. Is that right?
That's entirely true. Their previous one was okay. But look, the fact of the matter is they've had virtually no cases, very few cases, and all of those cases that have occurred have been, not all, but the majority of them have been, imported essentially from, there was the live import ship that came in with a couple of sick people. There was a couple of cases of international travellers returning, and they've had a couple of cases of community transmission from that, but very few. So they're pretty they are in a bubble unto themselves, really.
Yeah, the Federation is in tatters.
It is. Well, it's strong. It's just got a little bit of a tear along the bottom left-hand corner, you might say.
Yeah, and with a few elections coming up, it's no wonder that everyone's playing their cards. No, I don't know. They're not even playing them close to their chest. I don't know. That's all I got.
Putting them on the table.
They're putting the cards out on the table and letting the world see their cards. Yeah. Now, I'm very happy to hear that Western Australia's economy is doing well because they're going to need that $30 billion to give to Clive Palmer, aren't they? Which is nice.
Indeed, absolutely.
All right. This is funny, Jake. We're out to recession.
Yeah. Did you like that? I've actually, Greg, I've made titles for all of.
This is great. Okay, so we're out to recession. All right, so
only some of them are funny though. Anyway, yes, after 29 years of consecutive economic growth, the Australian economy has officially entered a period of recession after contracting by 7% in the June quarter. So we've had 2 straight quarters of negative growth, unfortunately. It's been triggered by the coronavirus pandemic and the associated containment policies. But, of course, the Australian economy was looking pretty dour as we sauntered into the virus. Earlier on this year.
You got your old-timey word dictionary out today. It's great.
Quote, this is by a wide margin the largest fall in quarterly GDP since our records began in 1959. The Australian Bureau of Statistics National Accounts Michael Smedes said earlier this week. In Australia, we last experienced this level of economic downfall not this level, but we last experienced a recession in 1990, 1991 when the previous treasurer under Bob Hawke, Paul Keating, called it the recession.
And we had to have.
Yeah.
Yep. Now this is not great news for all those rich people, Jake. I imagine they're the ones who are going to be impacted the most.
No, the rich people are going to be perfectly fine. In fact, they're about to get a whole bunch of new tax cuts. No, the people who are going to be disproportionately affected are those on low income, in low socioeconomic status.
Yeah.
Those who are in insecure work. Those reliant on essentially people going out and spending money. So retail sector, hospitality sector, we can imagine, large downturn here. But really what it means is...
And that's disproportionately women as well. So, all of those vulnerable workers, and a majority of those being women, are the ones who are affected in these sorts of harsh economic times, aren't they?
You're absolutely correct, yeah. The real thing that it means is that essentially the government is going to have to continue spending big. Okay, either to prop up via programs like JobKeeper or to do some classic Keynesian economic stuff, which would be fun, pay someone to dig a hole and then pay someone to fill it in.
That's what my children do all the time. Okay, so this is huge news, and I heard Josh Frydenberg this week, our lovely treasurer. Jay Fry. He said that these numbers don't actually take into account the upcoming numbers from the close down of the Victorian thing. So in the September quarter, it's going to be even worse.
Well,
I'm
the
going to stop
economy
there
is
because
losing
that's the most I've ever talked about the economy in my life.
Well, it's amazing because for every week that Melbourne maintains its closure, the Australian economy loses about $1 billion.
Okay, I'm going to do some maths here. Hang on. Yes, that is a lot.
Yeah, it is. It's several zeros, followed by a number.
Exactly.
One or a different one. So it's crazy, and it's going to be really interesting to see how the government reacts to this. I actually thought this week I had a little bit of I had a particular run. I think it was on Monday this
Careful,
week.
we're live.
No, I didn't have my earphones in when I normally have my earphones in when I run, but I didn't have any earphones in, so I had to think. And I thought I was having this thought that, I bet you right now, Scott Morrison and Joshua Frydenberg sitting in, one of their offices with their feet up on the table saying, geez, it'd be great to be in opposition right now and letting Labor spend massively and just be the opposition saying, guys, you're doing it wrong. This is awful. Because the last thing that Liberals want to do is to be in a position where they are the ones, doing social good programs, propping up, the lower socioeconomic areas. They want to be, reducing taxes and promoting industry. They don't want to be propping up people.
No, they don't want to be doing that. Yeah, I think kudos to them for working super hard. One thing I forgot to mention, Jake, just as a side note, Tony Abbott.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure he wasn't playing politics with this comment. This is one of my favorite comments from the week. Tony Abbott referring to Daniel Andrews's request to prolong the what has he got, the
lockdowns.
No, well, he wants. The state of emergency. He's prolonging the state of emergency, and he's also. I think there was talk about him prolonging the lockdowns based on the numbers. The health dictatorship.
Yeah, it was really interesting.
I love the fact, in America, people are just flat out just dying.
Yes.
Yet we live in a health dictatorship.
Yeah. It was actually the full quote is I would say quite upsetting because he's basically he's making the argument that which is it's reasonable for an economist to make an argument based on on one hand the amount that every life is worth, so we can place
you can quantify it, yeah,
exactly. Quantify the worth of an individual. That's not the net worth, but
$2.50.
Exactly.
I've got an app that tells me, and I think it fluctuates between $2.51 and $2.49 at the moment.
Exactly like fuel prices.
Yeah,
pretty close actually. And on the other side, the cost of the economic shutdown. So if a person dies, this is how much it's going to cost the economy versus shutting down the economy entirely. And that's, and so economists can make this argument, but they don't make these arguments, particularly in a pandemic, they don't make these arguments in a vacuum. They make them alongside health ministers and chief health officers, people with, you might say a certain amount of empathy.
And knowledge.
And knowledge and all of those sorts of things. What Tony Abbott did this week is he made the economic argument alone, and it's really sad. He essentially said, how much is life actually worth? In previous periods of time, instead of locking things down, we might have opened things up and allowed nature to take its course. And a bit sad.
That is a bit sad,
but that's the way of the world.
He's always full of controversy. Now, speaking of controversy, see what I did there? Oh no, I've got the crackle.
Sounds delicious.
I've got a crackle, Jake.
We're actually making a roast pork today. Still crackling a little bit. Making a roast pork this afternoon, and intending on making some crackling. I do love a bit of crackling. It's a bit delicious.
Hello. Whoa.
Still there?
So crackly. Okay. All right. Give me some. I don't know much, but I know I hate crackling.
Mm.
But I know I
Gone.
love you. Let me be all I need to know. Now, Jake, this is where my professionalism comes in, because I thought I better double check to make sure it's still recording. And it was not. And now it is. All right. Speaking of
because
controversy.
you pulled out your microphone?
It is literally because I pulled the microphone out of the socket.
Okay, no worries.
All right. Okay. But it is now officially recording. Now, Jake, this week, Facebook, first YouTube are telling me that I'm under attack.
Yeah.
That the cat videos that I watch and, the cable management videos that I watch are all under attack. And that I might actually have to go to the news source for my source of my news. Facebook is now threatening that as well. And I think you were surprised this week to find out how many people actually get their news from Facebook.
Yes, around. It was a survey of over 1,000 people, which isn't a massive sample size, but I was still surprised to find that 32% of people get their news from Facebook.
Yeah.
Now it is a really interesting thing, and you raised the Google YouTube thing. So Google has an agreement with the news organizations, but it is one that they have fostered themselves with news sources. And as a consequence, they essentially control that. That's not what this is about. This is about the ACCC, the Australian Consumer
Commission?
Commission, Consumer
and Caring Commission.
They, it's not, but let's go with it.
How do you not know what the ACCC is, Jake? You're the smart one on the show.
It's too many C's, Greg.
I'm mucking around trying to make sure that I've still got the right inputs and outputs.
The Australian
dear me.
Care and Consumer Commission.
Yeah, the Australian Cats.
Cats and Consumer.
Got it.
Anyway,
the Australian Cats and Centipede Commission.
So that government organisation,
the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission.
That's what it is. Yeah, thank you. So they have essentially created this new proposed or draft regulation that will require the media, these massive tech companies to both pay a share for people to essentially share their news on their sites, because these things work both ways, of course. Both Facebook and Google, they get clicks, and they have ads on their sites, and as a consequence, they're able to bring people to those ads via those clicking things, those links, those news articles. But of course, it does mean that. was that too many references?
It was just keep going.
But of course, the news organisations themselves, they also get clicks out of that, which they're able to get people back to their own sites. But quite often, Facebook and Google will have an intermediary hosting service where essentially, if you drop the link of your news story into Facebook, for example, they might have an intermediary whereby if you click on that link, it will not launch the for example, the Herald Sun website in order to view that article. It'll just open intermediate. So the Herald Sun has no ability to utilize their own online advertising. So anyway, that's basically why they're doing it. But Facebook has essentially said, look, if this thing goes ahead, we're not going to make people pay for their news. Okay, we're not going to make the general public pay Facebook in order to view news. Okay, instead, what we're going to do is we're going to prevent people from viewing news altogether on our platform.
Yeah,
which is massive. Absolutely,
it is huge.
Massive.
Apparently. It is massive because and their argument is that the news outlets actually need Facebook, not the other way around. Facebook doesn't need the news outlets. The news outlets need Facebook. 33%, was it?
It's about 32%. Yeah,
32% has that's a huge amount of people for eyeballs for news. I guess one of the benefits to actually not getting all of your news in one little chunk is that it might, I don't know, but maybe it might ease off on the clickbaitiness of it all. Like maybe if people are actually going to the source of the news, I don't know. I'm so tired of clickbait. I'm so tired of these I don't know. Like they actually, you can rebadge news stories, right? So I can take an ABC news article and I can just rewrite it, and I think it's literally called a rewrite. Yeah, so I can rewrite the news article and just sort of put it up on my news website.
Yep.
And I just think it's just and I've seen that a lot, and they change the title and they make it a bit more wild and they make it a bit more clickbaity, and I just get so exhausted from it because it's just so like, end of the world type scenario. You think everything's just going to fall apart, and it just doesn't. It's just like a normal news story, and it's just exhausting.
Continue.
It's exhausting. I don't know. Maybe it might change it. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I can't. I don't use Facebook or many of the social media platforms for news because the algorithms promote things that you've opened in the past, and I don't like echo chambers. I like to be presented with a broad range of news, broad range of opinions, etc. So yeah, look, it is really interesting. One of the massive deterrents as part of this new ACCC code of conduct is that if the big IT companies, if these big tech companies don't share things like their algorithms, any changes to their algorithms that might impact the way that news is shared, et cetera, then they can be fined 10% of their revenue.
Yeah.
That's massive. Huge. Considering some of these countries are worth $200 billion US. Yeah. Like it's massive. But also the major reason why Facebook especially, but Google probably as well, don't want these to go ahead. Do not want this code of conduct to go ahead is we are not the first country to raise it. We're the first country to come this far.
Yeah, right.
But essentially, the second that we create a precedent, all of those other countries that want, these big tech companies that pay virtually no or close to no tax in those countries where they are extremely prevalent, where they do have an impact on the revenue of journalistic organisations and thus the operation of those organisations. Those countries are going to come after these big tech companies in virtually the same way, I would suggest.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, interesting one to keep our eye on there, Jake. I don't begrudge people who do get their news from Facebook because it really depends on the sorts of Facebook on the sorts of organizations that you follow, really, doesn't it? I suppose to a certain extent, like you can see an ad and then you click on that. Well, that's a bit iffy. But if you've got actual sort of news sources, and you know what, like it's sort of a bit like, well, who am I to judge what's news and what's not news? Like if people are clicking on things that are clickbaity, well, maybe that's what the people want.
I couldn't agree more. I hate looking at stuff that just confirms my opinion.
Yeah.
All it does is add to my, my confirmation bias that I'm sure is already there. It's better, in my opinion, just for the stuff that I do and the stuff that we do and like to do together. I much prefer a broad range of opinions and views, etc.
Absolutely. You just don't want to be so open-minded, Jake, that
your brain falls out.
Exactly. And I'm sure it won't. I'm sure it won't fall out. Not with the hair like that.
What, with all this hair? Yeah.
Sticks right in there, grips right onto that brain. Now, Jake, I'm being spied on. I can feel it. I've got my spidey senses tingling. It might be the 1,000,001 cameras in my room that are also hooked up to the internet. But no, you're suggesting here that we promise we won't spy on you, but wow, did we find some bad stuff that we found spying on you.
Yeah.
The head of the Australian Signals Directorate?
Directorate, yeah, the ASD.
What is that? The ASD. Oh, of course.
It is essentially Australia's cybersecurity organisation.
Well, why didn't we call it that? It's a way better title. Australia's cybersecurity network.
Signals are bigger than just cybersecurity. Okay, so it includes things like
alien
phone
signals,
lines, like Morse code, like
alien
radio
signals.
Waves. To some extent,
like
I'm
aliens,
sure also
Jake.
alien signals.
Is that what you're talking about? Are we getting into what's his name? Jones territory?
Oh, Alex Jones.
Alex Jones.
God. I'm going to send you a TikTok link after this.
This is what they do. This is how they start. They start with these. They tell you that they're going to spy on your internet for your safety, and then all of a sudden it's the aliens. The aliens are spying on you.
They're turning your frogs.
They're beaming it straight up to there, Scotty. Straight up.
Oh, yes.
Why do you think your NBN's so bad?
Exactly. It's all being consumed by beaming up to the aliens to turn your frogs gay. No, it's all versions of signals essentially. So they monitor all of those versions of signals. So, but yes, the head of the Australian Signals Directorate is attempting to assure people that the intelligence agency is not seeking the power to conduct mass community surveillance.
Yes.
While also declaring that not all Australians are the good guys, which, of course, they found out by conducting mass community surveillance.
Right.
So, yeah, anyway, it's an interesting sort of thing. But, yes, with the government planning new laws which would allow the Australian Signals Directorate to help federal police target alleged Australian criminals. Rachel Noble, the head of the ASD, spoke this week talking about, essentially that they have fairly intrusive capabilities, but they don't necessarily use it. So the ASD director said, Director General said that that quote, the threat to our way of life is more real today than at any time I have known in my career.
Right.
So she said, domestic spy agencies like, ASIO should be able to. Sorry, I just punched my mic.
Oh, that's fine. It happens all the time. Every show, there's a good old donk. Yep.
Should be able to, quote, concern itself with Australians who may pose a threat to our way of life. Quote, some Australians are agents of a foreign power. Some Australians are terrorists. Some Australians take up weapons and point them at us and our military. Some Australians are spies who are cultivated by foreign powers and are not on our side. But essentially, there are some new laws coming. They are going to assist the ASD with working with major agencies like the Federal Police, like ASIO in the future. And there is, of course, that massive amount of funding that Peter Dutton in what's his department? The Home Affairs Department announced a couple of weeks ago, massive amount of funding for cybersecurity, and this will form part of that.
Yeah, well, this is a day and age where you've got people like, there's obviously the US election is coming up, and you've got all of this news coming out about the fact that, Russia's spreading misinformation. You've got scammers here in Australia who are targeting vulnerable people, from overseas and all that sort of thing, like, the fake numbers. They're not able to trace it. Basically on the ACCC website or on the cybersecurity website, wherever you put you lodge the complaint, they basically say there's not a lot they can do about it because a lot of these are from overseas. So, all of these different threats that the internet has brought to light, I'm so glad that they're reviewing everything, that they check everything, that they update their policies, that they update who they work with, that they update all this information, because it's becoming a global problem and not so much just an Australian problem. So I think it's great that they're looking to work with these different security agencies as well.
Yeah,
and I still think they should change their name
to
something way cooler. Yeah. Well, just cooler,
Yeah.
Like, surely we all have the image of them with their dark glasses on and their capes like Matrix, and
Yeah.
That's it.
They should do that.
Yeah, definitely.
Do the whole dodging bullets.
Definitely. Obviously, we're talking a bit more than just scammers and things, though. Obviously, we're talking a bit more than than those lighthearted
they're talking about
things.
espionage.
Yeah, that's right.
The big stuff.
Full-blown terrorism.
It was very funny to hear them say, we don't spy on you, but there are a bunch of people in Australia who are bad, which we found about by spying on you.
Okay.
Was a bit funny.
All right. Now, Jake, I just have to do something in a bit of an emergency, so you talk for a second, and I will be back.
Okie doke.
Seconds. Yeah.
So next up, Paul Keating has some super comments. The former Prime Minister Paul Keating has blasted little bitchy liberals for undermine. Oh, that's one that Greg's going to love. Greg's going to love that one. So I'm going to leave that one. Why don't we talk about hamsters? They are the Greg. changing your shirt is not an emergency. Were you too hot?
No.
But I do love I do love this. This is fantastic.
This is bonding, isn't it?
This is what Stepdad's Day is all about.
I've been looking at your shirt going, I'm sure I have that shirt. I'm sure I have that shirt.
Then you texted Rachel or the kids, and yeah.
No, it's literally beside me.
I love it. That's
anyway, I'm not convinced. This wasn't actually the shirt. I'm pretty convinced I've still got that exact shirt, actually. But this was the.
I dare say it was a mass-produced shirt.
Yeah, certainly a Target or a Kmart one or something like that. Dear me, I don't know what you spoke about, Jake, but I'm sure it was entertaining.
I started introducing this next story, but then I thought the opening line of it was too good. I thought you'd enjoy it too much,
all right.
so I
refrained. Hit me. Let's go. This is all about Paul Keating. He's back in the. I love it when these older prime ministers and older politicians get back in the news. I love it. They've always got inspiring things to say, like health dictatorship.
Yeah, some of them do. But yes, the former Prime Minister Paul Keating has blasted, quote, little bitchy liberals.
Yes. For
undermining the retirement savings system that he helped to create using a rare breakfast radio appearance to ridicule the idea that Australia can't afford to increase superannuation contributions from employers during a recession. So Keating said that Australia's vast pool of super savings, which is close to $3 trillion, was vital to fund nation-building infrastructure projects, and accused a, quote, miserable little backbench group of trying to undermine the system because it included industry super funds, which are jointly run by unions and employers that, the liberal backbenchers don't tend to, like them.
Yeah.
So it is really interesting, of course, because he denounced the meaningless, the meanness rather of liberal politicians who are currently on a rate of 15.6% superannuation, while trying to deny 12% to ordinary working people. And I should say we don't get to 12% immediately. We're currently on 9.5%, and over the next couple of years we will make our way up to 12%. But yes, politicians hypocritically suggesting that it's actually quite interesting, because the argument that politicians against the super increase are that are making, they're saying that essentially, if we were to do a super increase, right, what is going to happen is that you're going to notice in real terms that employers are going to put any amounts of money that they were going to increase in terms of wage growth, they're going to take that money out of the wage growth, and they're going to have to funnel it into super growth, right? So what they're suggesting is essentially, if we do super, it's going to be at the detriment of wage growth.
Right. Which we want to try and do at the moment to try and boost the economy, yeah? Like we want to try and get short-term gain here. Is that kind of... I mean,
in a recession, really what you want to be doing is getting as many people as possible into work. You want to get people spending as much money as possible.
Way ahead of you.
Absolutely, you want wage growth, but, potentially you just want more jobs. So anyway, but it is quite interesting, of course, because politicians, in virtually all states, all territories, and certainly federally, have had pay increases and super increases over the last several decades. So it's just a hypocritical argument. It is a sound economic argument that employers are having to funnel money into super, that it may not go into real wage growth, but it is one of those hypocritical arguments because they've gotten both. They've as you might say, Greg, they've had their cake and they've eaten it too. Which I've never understood that saying, Greg, because you can't put me in front of a cake. You cannot put me in front of a cake and not expect me to eat it.
Yes, but we did actually look that up because that's what it is, right? So this is the saying, right? So what they essentially want is their cake and eat it too doesn't mean that they want a slice of cake. What they want to do is they want to keep their cake whole and they want to eat it as well. But you can't eat the cake without destroying the cake. That's the point of the saying. So you want to keep the cake whole and you want to eat it too. That should be the full saying, if that makes sense.
You've explained it perfectly. It doesn't make sense though.
Well, that's not my problem now.
No, I know. It's old-timey sayings of who. Anyway, cakes are meant for eating.
Yes, they're meant for eating, but you want to keep the cake. So
because
you don't want to. Well, you know when you buy like a muffin.
Yeah.
And you finish the muffin and you go, "Gosh, I wish I had more muffin."
Gotcha.
But you've eaten the muffin. So you can't have the muffin and eat it too.
So maybe they want to say you can have 2 cakes and eat one too.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, if you want to do that, you can, but then you've still got the other cake. You've still got the issue with the other cake.
Yeah, and then you'd always be wishing
it doesn't end.
Second cake.
It's cakeception.
Yeah, it is cakeception.
Because we had the same discussion as a family. We were like, well, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't.
Anyway, it still does not. Or does it? You just want your cake and eat it too, Jake.
I certainly do.
Yeah, because most people think about a slice of cake where you go, well, of course, I would like to eat my cake too.
Yeah.
But you can't keep the cake whole.
That's true.
You're a cake hole.
Unless it's one of those unless it's one of those cakes with a hole in it, then you can keep your cake whole.
A donut?
No, I'm talking, the one it's like a bunt. Is it a bunt? I don't know.
I don't know what a bunt is, Jake.
An orange cake.
Look at me.
It's got a ring in the middle of
it. Do I look like I know what I'm talking about when it comes to
You look
cakes?
like a hipster, Greg, okay?
Well, if I look like a hipster.
Touche.
This is my Magnetic Island shirt.
Oh, nice. It looks very nice.
Yeah, thanks.
Very magnetic.
Yeah, it's very slimming. Until I stand up. All right. Jake, we got a big morning ahead of us, so you need a little bit of a break before you start recording your iFriends podcast. You need to start ringing some people, I imagine, or is it just you and I?
No. We got guests from all over the world.
Okay, that sounds really fun. All right, well, you better get started on that one. So thank you so much for chatting with me today. And when people have finished trying to find their own cake holes.
Or figure out what up cricket is.
When our listeners have finished Googling the rules to up cricket.
What Tony Abbott is doing with the carpet.
Yeah. What would you like them to do?
I would love them, Greg. I would love them, firstly. I would love them. But then after that, after I'm finished loving them, I would love it if they could rate, review, and subscribe, or perhaps subscribe and then rate and review, because rating and review absolutely helps other people to find our show.
We'll draw you a diagram. Don't do anything until we draw you a diagram. If you don't move, if you'd like to share the love, you can do so by telling your friends, families, and foes to head to thepouchpodcast.com, where they can choose their favorite podcast player of choice. I will speak to you in a few minutes, Jake.
Yep. Time to play up cricket.
We should have called the podcast Up Cricket. That was way better. All right. See ya.